welcome. You're watching Head to Head. I'm Antonina Antosha with UATV. Since Kremlin started its hybrid war against Ukraine back in 2014, over 1.5 million people have been displaced by the conflict. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians fled their homes to escape the war in the eastern Donbas region. Others fled from the new occupational regime installed in the annexed Crimea. Nowadays, these people face numerous problems. Their support services are often understaffed and underfunded. Foreign support is inadequate, and clumsy bureaucracy and populist agitation may complicate their lives even more. So what must be done to help the internally displaced people? To talk more about this, we welcome in our studio today Andriy Solodko. He's a policy analyst at CEDOS think tank. Hello, and thank you for coming.
Hello.
So is there any official data on how many IDPs we have in Ukraine right now?
Well, official data says that we have about 1,700,000 IDPs, and the number of IDPs actually depends on several factors. First of all, there is this system implemented by the government that the government has a possibility to check if IDP is really a person who moved to government-controlled territories or who is living there and only coming to receive the social payments. So we see that the number depends on this factor, and for example, if it's winter, like late autumn, when the government is checking the numbers, because in summer it's normally everybody is on vacations, IDPs are doing their things at home and nobody is checking the numbers, so we see that this season now number a little bit more higher, but normally, like you said 1.5 million, it's more or less official numbers.
But is it close to reality? Or
well,
in fact, the number is even bigger?
The problem is that it's not close to reality because of the system implemented that to obtain your social payments, you have to be an IDP. So many people live in occupied territories and are coming only here to receive their social payments, and the government does not say the official numbers, does not say any how it estimates the numbers, but speaking about the representatives of international organizations like UNDP or International Organization of Migration, they say that about up to 1,900,000 up to 1 million we have IDPs, but it's unofficial and nobody will recognize this on official level.
All right. What kind of problems do IDPs usually come across when moving to a new spot to live?
We tried to evaluate actually these problems, and because research Ukrainian or national researchers of international organizations as other NGOs shows that normally IDPs faces common problems that faces migrants in other countries. It's access to social services, like housing, like employment, like access to healthcare system, education. But what is new, and CEDOS research that IDPs faces a problem with integration. We tried to evaluate 20 cities in Ukraine. We took 20 cities. These 10 cities are where the number of IDPs is the biggest, and 10 cities where there is the biggest proportion of IDPs. And these cities were divided in 5 regions according to the methodology of International Organization of Migration. It depends, the region depends on the distance from the front line. And we saw that actually IDPs feel lack of integration policies. What it means...
Like what? What do you mean?
Yeah, it means that what is integration? Integration is when IDP has equal rights as the persons who are living in this community, or opportunity to obtain these rights. And we saw that first of all, according to the subjective evaluation of IDPs themselves, they say that they are not integrated. Only about it depends on the period, but the maximum number is about 60%. Person says they are integrated, but the other, it's like 40 or sometimes even more, says they no, and it means that they don't have, first of all, real access to these social services I mentioned. Then they cannot participate in the life of community, and then it means that community itself is not ready to recognize IDPs as members of this community.
So basically, it looks like it's community's fault that the IDPs feel not integrated well enough.
Well,
or is it the IDPs' fault as well?
I think it's both, but first of all, it's the fault of community, I think. And when I say community, it's not, first of all, people, but local authorities. We see that, for example, we were monitoring how many IDPs are members of local parliaments, of local councils, how many IDPs are working in the executive branch of local power, and we saw that numbers are very, very small, and the dependency is the following, that the far we go from the front line, the less of IDPs we have who has some influence in this local community, who have, like, whose voice can be heard. For example,
but it looks like it's a vicious circle, because when IDPs move to another spot of living, they have some other problems to take care of, like you just said, the access to healthcare, the access to education, place of living, and only after all of that is resolved and settled, only then the IDPs can actually start integrating into the community itself and try to become a part of the governing body. So maybe, it's just a suggestion, that the local governments should provide IDPs with at least help, if not all that I just named, and only then people could become useful, you know, as a governing body.
Yes, and the problem is that, like I will tell, I should tell that there are really good examples of the initiatives going from the local governments, but the national framework, legal framework, says that we have to have the integration program on national level, then on regional level. It means the oblasts. So it's actually what we have, and the problem is that the level where IDPs are integrated is not the regional level, it's not the national level, it's the local level. It's their city, maybe their street, their house, with their neighbors. And we saw really good examples of integrational programs adopted in, for example, in Severodonetsk. And what is good that normally, you know, integration program in Ukraine, it's the list of different authorities and the task what they have to do. But here they evaluated different researches because the needs of IDPs differs from region to region. IDPs cannot have the same needs in Mariupol, for example, or in Kiev, or in some small city like Irpin near Kiev. And they evaluated this, and they put different indicators, qualitative, quantitative indicators. And why actually it happened? It happened because Severodonetsk is close to the front line, and there are many international organizations there, donors. There is like kind of pressure on the local authorities, and strong cooperation with IDPs, with their NGOs, and they developed this program, and we made some kind of a ranking of 20 cities we chose, and Severodonetsk was the second after Mariupol.
Your study also shows that IDPs usually prefer cities or towns instead of rural areas. Why so?
Well, according to our estimations, it's like 3/4 of IDPs are living in the urban areas. It's well, there are two reasons, like two huge reasons. First of all, because of course the city, you have much more possibilities for life. For your children to go to school, to the kindergarten, to find a job, to find a house. And the other reason is that mostly IDPs from the east is people who are moving from the cities, because east is very like the level of urbanization is very high, so they don't have this experience of living in the village, and they are thinking that, for example, their skills, they're working mostly in the mines, mostly in the heavy industry, can be useful, can give them job in the city. So they try to escape the villages, but we have very good examples of action when, for example, on the north of Kyiv Oblast, a little bit north than Vyshgorod, a community of IDPs with the help of NGO Crimean diaspora, they asked, actually, they used their constitutional right for land, and they received, I think it's about 60 hectares of land, and about up to 550 families now are living there. It's a village, actually, and they are building some kind of a new village inside of the other village, and they're showing rather good performance of integration.
I think we all wish that all of our IDPs would be as successful and as useful to the local community they try to integrate in. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
That was Andriy Solodko. He's a policy analyst at CEDOS think tank. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned with UATV for the rest.